I'm going to jump back to the event at Nordstrom's and just what happened. With respect to an individual, people keep wondering why somebody didn't know that person Dana Dawson was on parole. I do want to say at that special city council meeting we had, I think an assistant sheriff, Steve Simpkins, indicate that it was a mistake of the sheriff's office in inputting at least one individual. I don't know if it was the Dana Dawson.
No.
But as you've mentioned, you put in the system, and if it doesn't kick back that somebody's on parole, you don't know. It may very well be that they are on parole. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I still don't have all of the facts about what exactly happened or who typed in what, but sometimes people use aliases. My understanding, I did get some information that there could have been an alias that was used in this particular case. I'm not sure. I'm just being real with everybody. I don't know why all the finger pointing is going on. I mean, mistakes happen. And I think that's what happened in this case, that there was just a mistake that occurred. I think the broader issue at hand is why are people getting parole so early? And we need more teeth in our criminal justice system that we had before, to where we could hold these people accountable, to where it's less attractive to actually commit these crimes. And it is, just like I mentioned earlier, we have asked for parole holds on people and we don't always get them. So that's at the discretion of the Department of Corrections. It has nothing to do with us. We can ask for a parole hold, doesn't mean we're guaranteed to get it. We're not required to ask for a parole hold either. It would certainly help us. Our ultimate goal is to keep criminals off the street and to prevent crime. One of the ways you prevent crime is you focus on your 20% who's doing 80% of the crime and get them off the street. And it's difficult to do if they're getting paroled and there's really not a lot of teeth in the justice system like there were before. And we're seeing it with, restrictions on search clauses and things like that. So I'm not sure exactly. I still don't know exactly where the breakdown was, but I'm sure this has just garnered a lot of attention. But I'm sure there's other situations where people were on parole and maybe didn't have a parole hold placed on them. It happens all the time. But it's an imperfect system, and I think it's a much larger conversation than just parole and parole holds, but it's just the actual crime itself and the initial convictions.
Could you just tell I think our audience, interesting that I call it the 849B. So as a former prosecutor, if the police bring somebody in to the agency, they're booked into, let's say, West County or Main Detention in Martinez, and the district attorney, and I was in that role many times, asking for additional evidence. So sending it back to the police agency to get me additional evidence. And in that case, the sheriff's office can only hold that person for so long and has an obligation to release them. So can you just tell us a little bit of how that system works? Because it isn't necessarily on the police department or necessarily on anyone. It's just how our system works. We've got 72 hours or whatever to file.
Yeah, if no charges are filed by the DA's office because of a lack of evidence or whatever reason, or the system's overwhelmed and every county is different, then sometimes these people will be released. A lot of times, a lot of petty criminals are released. I'll give you an example: catalytic converter theft. We've arrested people who have been arrested, 5 to 6 times in the previous couple of months for the same thing, and they are still out. And sometimes if a jail's at capacity and somebody's been given a court trial, it's, they'll release someone on their OR, on their own recognizance, and that's their discretion to do. So again, we talk about an imperfect system. We don't have unlimited resources, whether it's at our level or the jail level. If a DA calls us and we've arrested somebody and the DA is requesting additional evidence, we do our best to provide that as quickly as we can. We have a pretty good sized detective bureau who would be responsible for that. But yeah, Matt, you're right. If there's insufficient evidence or we're not able to produce more evidence that the DA would need to file, then that there's only so long that the sheriff's department would be able to hold them in the county jail. And a lot of times we book people for low-level crimes just to solve a problem and to send a message. I'll give an example, like somebody who's drunk and disorderly and maybe causing a fight. Well, if we were to give them a citation, they're still intoxicated, they're still causing an issue, and they're still in our city, there's still going to be a problem. To solve the problem, you would arrest them and take them to the detention facility where they would sober up. And Matt mentioned 849B of the penal code, which is basically a release indicating that it was a detention only. And I don't know if the DA, if we are filing charges, but I also understand that there is maybe one detox facility in the county and it's like next to impossible to take somebody there for detox. That would be much easier than having to go through the rigmarole of booking someone into jail and taking a cop off the street for 3 hours because they have to go through the whole jail procedure. But we do have a lot of drunk and disorderly people in Walnut Creek and the downtown area on the weekends.
You know, it's interesting. I don't know if your experience, I don't know what's happening in Contra Costa County. I do know several Alameda County agencies take people to Santa Rita and they're refused. So literally Santa Rita is saying no, or the agency wants to book them in, but they're refusing. I have a daughter in an agency and she said that regularly happens. Nope, can't take them. Have you experienced that perhaps in San Leandro? Were you aware of that?
Yeah, the stars have to be aligned just perfectly for them to accept your arrestee. If they have any type of medical problem, the officer has to take that arrestee to a medical facility and have them medically cleared by a doctor for booking. Now, there's usually an intake nurse at the jail that would do a preliminary evaluation on somebody, and sometimes they'll send your prisoner back with you and say, hey, this person has a medical issue, he's not fit for booking. It'd be beyond the sheriff's department's ability to care for that person. So that's one part of it. Some of it could be an overcrowding situation. But legally, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here, but legally, the sheriff's department's required to accept the arrest. And we'll jump through all the hoops and get them medically cleared and all of those things. But accepting the arrest could be, okay, we take your arrest. Now we're going to issue them a citation on promise to appear on court because we have nowhere to put this person. That can happen too. Well, I can do that. We have a little temporary holding facility here. We can do that here at the police department. DOJ says for a booking, all you need are fingerprints and a photograph. I can do that here. When we take them to the jail, what we're doing is we're expecting to remove that criminal element from our community, and how the sheriff's department disposes of the person is up to them, whether they give them a court date, whether they're held to trial. So it's after that, it's kind of out of our control, which is frustrating sometimes when you see the same person you just arrested back in your city, a few hours later, and able to commit another crime.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump. I keep jumping back to the Nordstrom event because the questions keep coming in that respect. There was I've heard a rumor that in fact a number of the cars met it somewhere in the neighborhood of a bank, taking off their license plates or putting paper plates on or whatever. And the question was, and perhaps it goes to just what is the state of the investigation with the PD and gathering evidence about all those cars that fled?
We are working several leads. I do expect some more arrests in the very near future. That's all I can say. We do have a lot of evidence. We really relied heavily on video evidence in this case. I think if we had more cameras in the area, which the council just granted us some funding for that, we would be even in much better shape, because the idea would be to capture those cars maybe prior to their crime when they are pulling off. If they did pull into a parking lot and switch their plates out, because not all of those cars were stolen, not all of those cars were carjacking. A lot of people just got sucked into the moment and it was a crime of opportunity. And then you also had a group that is certainly related to or had some potential gang affiliations. In the broader sense of organized retail crime, there's gang activity usually involved because it furthers the existence of the gang through financial enterprise, which is why they have the gang in the first place.
Okay, thank you. I promised the chief I wouldn't keep him too much longer, but I thank you very much for this additional 25 minutes. I know there are going to be lots more questions, and hopefully within the next 6 months or so, we'll have you back and we can talk about your experiences here as the chief of Walnut Creek. So thank you very much appreciate your time here today. And thank you all of you who submitted questions. I'm sorry I wasn't able to ask all of them, but we'll get to them at some point in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.